Hi, this is Greg Hughes from 90-Second Website Builder. This is video number 18 in our Quick Start video series. And in this tutorial, I want to show you how to make a slideshow. It's very easy to do. It's a great way to display images on your website with some special effect. In fact, the slideshow tool is found under the images category here in the toolbox. You'll see where it says images. One of those tools is the slideshow. And the slideshow works a lot like the image tool in that you just drag a box out and find an image. So if I was going to find an image, I'd take the image tool and I would go like this, and it would take me to my computer's desktop or wherever I last left it, and I would try and find an image, click on it, and say open. And so here's an image, right? Okay, I'm going to put this image out of the way right now and show you that the slide tool is very similar, except that, of course, it has some great special effects. So we take the slideshow tool, and just like with the image tool, I'm going to drag a box. It's going to take me to where I can find some images on my website. Here, I'll select the same image, and I'm going to click open, and there it is. Now, this is not a slideshow yet because the purpose of a slideshow is to show multiple images, and I only have one. So the way we do that is now by double clicking on this image, I'm going to open up the slideshow properties so we can add images to our slideshow. So I'm going to double click, and here you can see the slideshow properties window comes up. There's the one image that I already have, the one I started with, but I can add some more images. So I've got a web page here that's about magic books, so I'm going to go get some images that show pictures of my books. All right, so let me click add, and then I'm going to locate the image, and let's see, let's find another book here. There's one here. I click open, I click OK, and you can see it has now been added to the list. I can click OK, but I want to add a few more, so I'm not ready to do that. I'm going to click add again, locate the image, and let's see if I can find another one here. Okay, I'm going to find several more. You get the idea of how it works. So rather than have you sit through that, I'll pause the video and then I'll go get some more. So I'll be right back in a second. Okay, so I've added several more. I'm going to add one more here. Clicked add. I'm going to go locate my last book, which will be this one right here. And I click OK. So now I've actually added, about 7 different book covers to my slideshow. So now when I click OK, you don't see any change here. This is still the same object, and my first image shows. But what will show is when we preview. So let me shrink this down just a little bit to fit my box right there. And I'm going to click F5 so we can see what the slideshow looks like. F5 allows me to preview. And here's my books. Now you'll notice they're changing. They just kind of appear magically, oddly enough, and we see the covers of the books. Now you'll notice that every image is the same size, which is kind of interesting because those images originally are not the same size. But when you're working with the slideshow tool, whatever size I made my original box, or whatever I stretch the box to, the slideshow will make the images fit that size, accommodate it. Now the problem with that is sometimes if you use a really, really small image and you stretch it, it can get pixelated, like that one kind of is. Or a really big image that you shrink down too small can look kind of funny. So there's a way to work with that, and I'll show you here in a second. First of all, if you're just going to make a simple slideshow like this, it's a good idea for your images to be approximately the same size so that they don't look too funny when they stretch and shrink. Let me close the preview and show you what we've got. So if I double click on this and you see that I've got the slideshow properties here, what it's telling me is the default settings is it's just going to show these pictures in a particular sequence. It's going to pause for 3, and I can make the pause be longer by raising this number or shorter by making it a smaller number with no effect. And so obviously there's a lot of decisions to make here. If I'm going to make a slideshow that's a sequence, I can do some things like make them fade or make them slide or make them, do lots of different things. Puff, that might be appropriate for a magic website. Let me move this up so you can see better. So some of the things I can do are these different effects. Ken Burns. This is a really interesting effect. In fact, I'll pick this one and let's make our slideshow do that. I'm going to click OK. Again, F5. And you'll see the transition is a little bit more dramatic. That's called a Ken Burns effect, where it kind of zooms in and fades away. So the point is, you can make your slideshow do several different things. However, having said that, you don't have to just do a sequence type slideshow. Because one of the disadvantages of the sequence, like I was starting to say, is that if all of your images are different sizes, they can look pixelated because the slideshow will be determined, or the size of the slideshow will be determined by the size of this box. So in other words, if I make my slideshow really big, just for the sake of argument, let's make it really big. The problem is the images that shouldn't be that big are going to look pixelated. And yet they're all going to be stretched to fit that, as you can see. Now some of them look great because they are big images. Those don't look so bad. But when we get to an image that's not meant to be that big, it's going to look kind of fuzzy or boxy like that one. See, that one's really not meant to be that big. And it still has the Ken Burns effect, as you can see. Okay, so let me close that. I really want my slideshow to be an appropriate size, meaning the approximate size of what these images should be, so they look their best, so they can look as crisp as possible. Or I could do something really cool. I can do a different effect. And I don't mean this kind of an effect. I mean this kind of an effect. It's called the type of slideshow. Instead of sequence, I could use something else. Now, random is the same thing, it's just they don't go in a particular order. Conveyor belt is similar, it's just that instead of just appearing, they sort of slide on a belt. I'll show you what I mean. Let's do that real quick. So here the pictures just slide as if they're on a conveyor belt. And as you hover over them, they would stop. So the user can stop the image just by moving the mouse there. And by the way, each of these images can be links. So you could have the user hover over an image and click on it and maybe go to a page about that book or whatever. So these can be clickable links. That's the conveyor belt. But what I really want to show you is probably the most effective way to do a slideshow, and that's to use this type, a Lightbox. When you use a Lightbox, it looks a lot more updated, and it just does a lot of fancy things. In fact, one of the effects is called Fancy Box. And of the Lightbox gallery, you actually have 4 different effects, 4 different kinds of light boxes you can use. The simplest one is called Fancy Box. In fact, I'll show you what it looks like. When I click OK, I'm going to hit F5 and preview my new slideshow using the Lightbox effect. And you'll see what it does is a lot more interesting. Because when I click on my slideshow, it actually pops up a slideshow like this. You can see it's called a Lightbox. And when I hover over, it gives me an arrow that I can click on. Now notice that this image just got a little bit bigger. Why is that? Well, that's because the Lightbox accommodates the size of the image. So let's go here. Now it's a little bit narrower because that's the actual size of this image. See, each of these images are going to be crisp because the Lightbox will shrink down or will expand to the right size. Go to the next one, you'll see what I mean. See, that's a much bigger image, and so therefore it moves up. Let me move the camera a little bit so you can see that better. If I hit the arrow again, go to the next one, that's a much smaller image, and so the Lightbox accommodates that. Here's a smaller one yet. See, that's why that one looks so funny when it was big. It wasn't meant to be that big. And then we'll go to another one here, and you can see now how that works. So that's the Fancy Box type of Lightbox in our slideshow. But wait, there's more. So we just looked at one. The Fancy Box is one way to do it. Gallery is another one. I'm just going to show you Pretty Photo, and I'll let you experiment with these others, but they're all great. Pretty Photo is great. It gives you a lot more options. I'm going to click OK. Click F5. Watch what happens to our slideshow now. When I click on the image, we've got a slideshow here that gives me not only arrows where I can go forward and backward from picture to picture, and they shrink and they expand as necessary, but you'll notice it also gives me this little thumbnail navigation down here where I can click through this down on these little sort of icons. So I can go to this page by clicking on this one, or I can go here to the end, and you'll see it gives me this little option. Also, it allows me to have arrows down here where I can click back and forth through the slideshow. So as you can see, the Lightbox is just a great way to present images. If you're a photographer, and you have any kind of a portfolio that you want to show, this is a really, really easy and slick way to do that. So the slideshow is a simple tool. It's one of the images tools that you can use in 90-Second Website Builder to make your website look updated and fun.